Hello, Stephen.
Hello, Will.
How you doing today?
Good. Excited for this first episode of Beyond the Campfire. You want to tell us a little bit about what our podcast is about?
Well, first off, we made an utter mistake here by not having a campfire, but that didn't fit in our budget.
Oh yeah.
But my name is Will. I am the sex symbol and the good-looking one of this little dynamic duo, and of course the cowboy of this Cowboy and Indian podcast.
Yes, and I am your co-host, Sahil Steven, the less attractive one of the two of us, and the Indian
The
of
brains,
our cowboy duo.
The brains and the bronze, the cowboy and the Indian. Listen, I talked to some casting agents, trying to get like the right other person for this, and I told them I needed an Indian, and I should have specified because they gave me the wrong Indian. As you can tell, he is from the country of India, not North America. I mean, he was born in North America, and he is an Indian.
Have you seen Furry Vengeance?
No.
There's a scene in that movie where one of the guys is talking to a girl, and he's like, "Oh, we need to get Indians at this event." She's like, "Oh, we can get buffalo burgers and arrows," and he starts to look really uncomfortable, and she's like, "Do you mean the Gandhi Indians?" And I died because I was like,
Oh man.
So anyway,
that's an interesting way to put it, the Gandhi Indians. I wanted the Pocahontas, and I got Gandhi. So
hey, here we are.
Hey, here we are.
Here we are.
This is the first of many episodes to come. Like I said, we do kind of hope to do this thing full time, and the only way that we can do that is thanks to some wonderful fans. So hopefully we can get some good devoted people out there that enjoy what we're doing, and we can have fun doing this, because I think this would be any other job that you can get. Law school or construction. I mean, this would be a great gig to do, because guess what? You get to do this full time, hang out with your brother, talk about conspiracies, mysteries, cryptids. And that's kind of what this whole podcast is going to be about. And unfortunately, the first 4 episodes, we're going to try to cover all of our topics. However, Stephen, I think, is going to cover something different for episode 4. Not a conspiracy, because the first episode is a mystery. The second episode is a
and we can get into all that.
And then the third is a cult, and the fourth one is going to be a conspiracy theory, because we were going to try to give you guys all a taste of kind of what to expect here. And that was where kind of give you a whole taste here. And I mean, we've kind of are going to do that a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of going to be our main 4 topics we're going to cover. We might actually, as we talk about it, we probably will also delve into some urban legends, because the whole point, the whole name behind Beyond the Campfire is we're going to go beyond the campfire, right? You remember as a kid sitting around a campfire telling spooky stories and
roasting marshmallows and
weenies and all the fun stuff, and you would tell these stories, and you probably didn't tell a conspiracy theory around the campfire, but that's still something mysterious where you're kind of going beyond the campfire in a way. So we're taking some of these actual ghost stories on the campfire, and we're going beyond the campfire, right?
Indeed,
some of these might be true stories, some of these might be fake. I want us to go into this kind of the whole thought behind this was what we're going to this. We're going into it believing in everything that's happening, okay? And then as we go through with the proof and stuff, hear the stories, at the end we can make the conclusion whether or not we believe that this actually happened. We can go off our favorite theory of a mystery and just kind of go from there,
Absolutely, yeah. I love it.
So
yeah, well, why don't we get into it? Episode 1, Roanoke. What a
great neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody lives there. So you don't have to worry about noisy neighbors.
So, well, why don't you kind of get us started? What was the Roanoke colony, broadly speaking?
So the Roanoke colony, for those of you who don't really know about this, in the 1580s there was a colony that was founded called Roanoke, and for some reason, this guy left, and we'll get into the reason why he left. But 3 years after the main leader of the group left for a little while to go gather some more supplies for him, when he came back, everything was gone. All the villagers were gone, the colonists were gone, everybody was just gone.
So a whole colony of people just disappeared.
Poof, gone.
Crazy.
Poof, gone, disappeared.
America's first mystery.
Really the first ever. There might have been some other stories with Indians we might get into a little bit later, like the Native Americans here, because they could have some mysteries that happened, or
sure.
Whatever. The Spanish being here too, there could have been some mysteries there. Who knows? But yeah, this is kind of the first big known mystery in America. And I feel like a lot of people kind of know what Roanoke is. So we're going to be kind of taking a little different route because, you know, a lot of people, you probably are sitting there and you're like, oh, I know about Roanoke. Colony disappeared. There's a lot of theories on what happened. And some of these theories, the reason why to understand these, we have to go back. Go back before Roanoke to the starting of this colony.
Yeah, why don't we actually talk about that to begin? Because I think before you get to the disappearance of Roanoke Colony, you really have to talk about why Roanoke was created, why the English, particularly Queen Elizabeth, wanted to establish a first permanent settlement in the Americas. Obviously, I'm a history major, so I love history. So, yeah, Will, why don't we start in England? You have Queen Elizabeth, and you have a few other characters. Why don't you introduce some of these key figures that kind of start to set up what eventually becomes Roanoke?
Yeah, so I was just kind of taking all the pictures because they were kind of like getting in my way of flipping through my notes in the future. So if you're wondering about the photos, we plan to kind of show you guys some of the photos of what we're talking about.
Paul our editor,
yeah,
will
and
get
then,
that in
of
there.
course, if you see me sliding
Shout
a piece
out,
of paper,
shout out, Paul.
Yeah, Paul is our video guy and our editor. And if this works out, we do plan to pay him. Right now, he is free labor, so we're using him for our benefit.
All right, history time. So, England, Queen Elizabeth. You know, obviously, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So there's this whole big land that needs to be explored, and Queen Elizabeth is interested. So, Will, kind of walk us through England and their plans for the Americas.
So the whole thought behind Roanoke this is all started in 1584. Okay, so 1584 was when Walter Raleigh. That last name kind of sounds a little familiar because Raleigh, Virginia, was named after Walter Raleigh. So kind of, was Raleigh? I think there's a Raleigh, Virginia.
Yeah, there's
Raleigh, Virginia. Okay, named after probably was named after Walter Raleigh. Okay, I'm just going off my own stuff here. So he kind of got together a little group between April and July, trying to get together resources and funds because he wanted to explore the rest of America. Because at this time, all we had was Plymouth. There was just Plymouth, nothing else, just Plymouth. Which hopefully the wife and I will see how actually cool the Rock is because, you know, in September for our 1 year anniversary, we're going to be going to Boston. And we're going to go to Plymouth. So we're going to go look at that.
very exciting.
So anyways, so on July 13th, that was when they finally left, kind of went down there. And
just to make sure we're on track.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
July 13th, Sir Walter Raleigh goes to the Americas
Correct.
to survey it.
Well, so Walter Raleigh, he was already in America. He's in Plymouth. So
Okay.
they go from Plymouth, and then they go down the coast a little ways to Roanoke Island. And on July 13th is when they made landfall.
Okay.
So-
and their goal's kind of to send information back
Yeah.
to England. Okay.
Figure out, like, because, I mean, at this point, we really don't know what's down there. We're kind of like, because at this time, all we knew was, like, New England, you know. We only knew about Plymouth. Plymouth was kind of the only colony we had, kind of all we knew about America at this point. And we're trying to see if we can really make this place a colony for England.
Makes sense. If you're establishing a colony, you want to see, is the land good? Can I farm crops here? Can I have a good clean water source? So, okay, yeah, good. I think we're tracking so far. Cool. What happened next?
So after that whole incident, so he got there on July 13th, made landfall. He met the chieftain of Roanoke Island, and then September of that same year. So we're still in. So we're still in 1584. So September 1584, they kind of came back to England. They brought with them some furs, some pearls. They also brought back two of their homies they met, Manteo and Wanchese. Again, there's going to be a whole compilation of me mispronouncing things. It is just going to happen. Listen, okay, I'm white. I can't say things right, okay?
So far, okay, things are looking probably pretty good. You know, like you said, they brought back all these furs, these pearls. They bring back two natives that you just mentioned. And so at this point, I'm thinking probably Queen Elizabeth's probably pretty impressed.
Oh yeah.
Cool. What happens next?
By the way, I'm gonna tell you the tribe of these two guys, these two natives, is the Amerindians. Now listen, I think Can't figure out, because a lot of people said that these guys were Armoridians, and I'm like, okay, cool. And so I looked up what that tribe is, and it actually is a racist term for natives. So it's either a racist term for natives or the actual tribe of the natives. So it's left to interpretation of what you want to think there.
Hey, when you have English settlers come into a place, it sometimes can be tough to say, what did the people call themselves, or what did the English just call them? But all right, cool. So we got all these things going on. What happens next, Will?
Okay, so after that, after they kind of like do their little thing, Elizabeth was like, we're Britain. We love land. We love money. What are we? We're Britain. Yay! Right? Let's go enslave these people. Let's go colonize.
Very British of them.
Colonize. So they go in there and they colonize. So April 9th of 1585, so about a year. 5 ships and 2 pinnaces. Peninsulas.
Okay. I
It's
thought you were going to say something else, but...
Listen, it sounds like it, okay, but it's actually 2. So because I looked up these ships. So the 5 ships were kind of like the size of the Mayflower, that kind of stuff. The 2 peninsulas are kind of like, very much like a rowboat, but not really the size of a rowboat. They can be stored on these ships and then lowered down and kind of like, allow them to go closer to land and make landfall. That's kind of what those 2 ships were. And this expedition was being led by Sir Richard Grenville, okay? So really, out of all these people that I've named so far, okay, you really only need Manchys, who's the guy, or Wanchys. Wanchys is the guy that went with them to England. He's going to play a key part later on. Then you also need to know about Sir Richard Grenville, okay? Those are kind of the only 2 names besides Raleigh you need to remember going forward.
Okay, cool. So we got Grenville, who's kind of
He's
exploring. You have Wanchys.
He's like what's his name? Who's the famous conquistador? What was his name?
I don't know conquistadors like that.
Hernandez. I think it was Hernandez, the famous conquistador.
Maybe, yeah.
He kind of like led these guys. He's kind of like the general, okay?
Okay.
He's kind of like the leader of this expedition, kind of in charge of like the military and all that kind of fun jazz. So they made landfall on June 26th. Okay, kind of going in, checking the neighborhood, making sure the school system's nice for the kids, and making sure it's a safe environment, and that the Walmart's not getting robbed all the time, or this kind of stuff. Making sure it's safe. You want a safe neighborhood. So
what do they find?
So while there, once this happened, by the end of July, Ralph Lane was named governor of Virginia, of the territory. Okay, it hasn't had a name yet. Actually, my bad. I forgot to put this in my notes, but it did get the name after he was, named basically the governor. They named the thing Virginia after their good lady, Queen Elizabeth I, who was known as the Virgin Queen because, apparently she could not get a hot blonde from the local bar. That is an inside joke between me and Steven.
All right.
Anyways, so she couldn't get that. So because of that, she was known as the Virgin Queen. And you can't just name a state Virgin because that does not sound fun. What state are you from? I'm from Virgin.
So you get the state of Virginia, more or less. Okay.
Pretty much. I mean, that's where you get the state of Virginia. And once it happened, this guy named Ralph Lane was on the expedition with them, and he was like kind of knighted and said to be the new governor of Virginia. Okay, and so this first colony isn't so pretty and nice. This is kind of the colony before Roanoke. They kind of set up a fort there, try to interact with the natives. And there's like this whole thing. I'm not going to go too much into it because we want to get to Roanoke and the conspiracies because that's kind of what this podcast is. We don't really want to go into too much of the history, so I'm going to try to skim through some of it. If you want to, I really highly recommend going and reading about this first early colony in Roanoke because like this is what truly sets up Roanoke.
So this first colony is kind of like a pre-Roanoke.
Right, it's the pre-Roanoke. This is kind of like the expedition, make sure everything's fine so that we can go in, and settle. And like I said, things didn't start off very well, but they did meet some nice natives called the CROATOAN tribe. Okay, they had 3, and they went to these 3 villages. Aquaskogok, I think that's right. Again, I am going to butcher these names so bad. Pamlico, or Pamliso.
Pamlico? You are making you are pronouncing that on purpose.
Listen, it's Pamlico. How would you pronounce that? How would you pronounce Pamlico?
Not Pamlico. I don't know. Pamliso?
Pamlico. I was thinking.
Lies. I guess neither one is a good way to pronounce it.
No, it's
you either got licking or lice going on.
We don't want that. Licking and lice is bad news.
I digress. Okay, so you have these three CROATOAN villages, right?
Right. So
okay, what happens next?
So with these three villages, they decided to leave this guy named Harriet White. Okay, like he is probably one of the very first big nerds. Probably has like a bug collection. Okay, and
why you got to do my man like that?
Listen, this dude. You know what he thought would be fun? I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna start the most useless degree, anthropology. And so he was just sit there just because he's like, I like to study the people and let me look at the bugs and pushing up his glasses.
The one anthropology major watching this podcast he's punching the air right now.
He's mad. He's fuming. Anyways, what eventually happened, because this is now that we kind of get an idea of where we're at, we got the CROATOAN tribe, we got these three villages, right? Harriet, you don't really need to remember Harriet, okay? He's kind of there and never really mentioned again from my notes, so don't remember Harriet, okay? What you do need to know is what happened next is what kind of started this whole long issue. Okay?
What happens next, Will?
Well, it gets pretty dark. So, you know how if you break your mom's fine china, okay, she breaks your ass.
Yeah, I definitely did not want to break my mom's china.
Do you think that she would burn down the house if you broke her fine china?
I mean, she might get the belt out. Don't want to get canceled, but she's not burning down a house.
No. Well, you know what the British do?
What did the British do, Will?
So the good village of Agua Skogak,
right,
was no longer started with the word agua because they got more fire.
The British burned down a village?
They burned down the whole village because they lost a silver cup. One silver cup. One silver cup. Let that be known. One silver cup.
And I thought my mom was mean. So the British burned down a native village over a silver cup.
Oh yeah, one silver cup. The fine china. One. It was not like if you broke if you broke one of your mom's fine china, she might be a little upset. But if you broke like a bunch of plates, she's getting the belt out. She's not bringing out the lighter and torching the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. That is, wow, that is wild. I don't think that's going to bode well for Roanoke later on.
Hell no. Come on now. To be fair, Roanoke got screwed from the beginning, okay? Before it even became a thing, it was screwed because this led into more downfall with the natives because by the spring of 1586, okay, the tensions between the natives, the CROATOAN tribe, and the colony were becoming strained. Okay, and so because of that, it was also because of the food. I'm pretty sure the silver cup incident didn't really help much. And also, this guy, you don't really remember his name. His name was Gran Janimo. Okay, he was like one of the only people advocating for the colony, and he died. So he's dead. He can't advocate for the village anymore, or the colony anymore.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, that's not a good place for the English to start off, and you burn down a native village. The one Native American that kind of is sticking up for you has now died. So I guess the English are really in a tense spot by 1586, huh?
Yeah, so it got a little worse, and it actually got worse because, like I said, this guy died. And so this guy named Wingina was very, very upset by this. Like, he was one person who was very advocating against the English. And to kind of, like, show the English that, like, okay, you burning a village, you're using our food, like, all this kind of stuff ain't gonna fly, cuz he basically became Batman. And he became Batman. He changed his name. Okay, you ready? He changed his name to Pimisipan. Okay, you want to know what that means in English?
Pimisipan?
Pimisipan.
Pimisipan. What does that mean in English?
The one who watches. Okay.
The one who watches.
It's like Breaking Bad. You know, I'm the one who knocks. No, he is the one who watches. Okay. And then to make it even more scary for the English, he sets up a colony to kind of watch Roanoke. So in a way, he really was like I am the one who watches. I'm Batman. Justice for CROATOAN.
That is some hardcore beef to where you're so mad you set up a whole colony to watch the English. That is insane. Wow.
So we're going to have Paul pull up this picture, and I'm going to slide this over to Steven so he can take a look at this guy. So this guy on your screen right now is the one who watches, okay? I'm not going to try to say his name, so he's going to be referred to as the one who watches from now on, because I think that's like the most badass name you could ever give yourself.
He looks like a tough dude.
I mean, he doesn't look too tough, but it's like you feel like he can really mess you up.
The arms crossed, those like muscular legs, like this is not a guy I would want to get in a fight with.
Look at those nipples too. Those nipples mean business. Okay, he all means business. Every part of his body says I mean business.
He's got the man bun going on too, like.
Dude, like, was ready to screw shit up. Like, he was ready, man. He was ready for it. So this kind of starts this whole thing. And a lot of my notes were about this whole war between Pamasapan and the natives, because in March, like I said, and by the way, with him changing his name, putting up this little colony, the English never saw this as a threat. They still saw them as their friends. So he kind of came to Messapan, or the one who watches, and was like, Lane, who's the governor, remember Lane's the governor, came up to him and was like, listen, like, I want to explore the mainland a little bit, kind of go beyond your territory, right? Kind of like, what do you think about that? And so he was like, oh, that's a brilliant idea, buddy. Go right ahead, right? So he kind of did tell him, though, he was like, be warned, there's this guy who's the leader of the Roanoke, and his name is Maniton, okay? Maniton kind of needs to be a little bit remembered for a little bit, but then you can kind of forget his name. So he was kind of leader, and he was kind of like, yo, listen, dude. He's getting his allies together. Okay. 3,000. 3,000 soldiers.
3,000?
3,000 guys are going to come marching up to your little city door. And they're going to kill you. They're going to attack. And so he's like, oh, okay, crap. So you think, okay, so obviously Messapan is just, or the one who watches, that's what we're just going to call him, the one who watches is kind of like, you think he's on our side. No, because he goes straight to that same leader I just told you about, Mena, and Minoton, and he goes, hey, listen, the English are coming. Okay? He's like an old time, he's like pre-Paul Revere guy. The British are coming,
Yeah, beat him by about 200 something. Well, I guess 190 years. Yeah, wow. That's funny.
No, it's about 200-ish.
Yeah, well, Paul Revere has his ride, 1770 something?
Yeah, and this took place in 1580.
Okay, yeah,
so it's like 190.
Yeah.
About 190 years-ish. Anyways, so yeah, he kind of goes in there, kind of like, hey, guys, the English would be coming, and hoping that both sides would expect hostilities. Okay. During this time, he was actually meeting Minoton. Remember, he's the leader of this tribe, okay? That the one who watches kind of warned that the English were coming. He actually didn't kind of really take this serious, and so when Lane, the governor of Virginia's well-armed guys, showed up, they were not expecting it, and so he took Minoton and his son captive, and kind of tortured Minoton, and Minoton was kind of like, yo, you remember the one who watches? You gotta watch out for him, because he's the guy coming for you.
No way.
So, and because of this, like, they kind of became buddy-buddy, and like kind of became good friends, and Minoton like was kind of giving them this information to kind of like, basically become friends, and just kind of become friends. He kind of told them about what the British were hoping was the Pacific Ocean on the other side of Virginia. There was this powerful chief that they had mentioned, and then there was also this land that he had mentioned about that was rich with metals, copper, gold, and Lane kind of wanted to figure this stuff out and kind of like devise this whole plan idea. And so he decided that he was going to divide into two groups, okay? One would travel up the Chowan River, and then the other would go up the Atlantic coast, okay? Hoping to like resettle, in that area, because that's where he was kind of hoping would be that land of gold and copper and all these pretty things. By the way, sorry about the wind. Oh, there's a whole UPS truck outside. Awesome. I don't know what they're doing.
Get your delivery.
Get my delivery
items.
Hey, UPS sponsor us.
And Waffle House.
Anyways, we had that for lunch. going off topic. Anyways, back to topic. So this kind of like leads to him kind of going up the river and following what the leader of the tribe that remember he captured that guy. The guy that he captured, he kind of like took his idea, and the plan was Pimisipan, or the one who watches. We're just gonna like I keep calling him by his actual native name. I'm just gonna call him the one who watches. I'm actually gonna stick to that. He kind of like gets word of this and like sets up an ambush, and as well tells the villagers along that route to go hide and take their food with them, because Lane was hoping to along the path. The governor of Virginia was hoping to go along this path, collect like some of the goods and eat along the way. So he got his ass handed to him, and then his men were starved. So by the time they got back to their fort that they had founded, okay, they were like being told, oh, there was rumors that Lane had actually died on this expedition, and so people thought he was dead. And so Pimisipan was kind of like, I'm going to leave now and leave you guys to starve. So a lot of people were kind of getting worried, but once Lane showed up, it kind of like got everything back going. So
this is kind of a defeat, a pretty big defeat for the English. They're trying to set up this pre-Roanoke colony, and instead they're attacked by the one who watches. They're out of resources, and they're just starving. So far, things are not going well. Will, how does this saga kind of wrap up, and how the heck does this lead to the Roanoke colony?
It's still, we got a little ways to go, but not too long. So the good thing about this was that Lane, like I said, by the way, the trip that they took was about 100 miles, by the way, so that kind of gives you an idea of how many miles they walked. No food, getting ambushed, like it was bad. So kind of him being there kind of surprised the one who watches. Like he wasn't expecting Lane to survive. And this kind of like, it kind of made him reconsider his plans of leaving. And it didn't help that one of the guys in his tribe, an elder on his council, was kind of like, I side with them. And then another one of these tribes that was nearby, it was the tribe, I'm not going to mention the guy's name.
So the natives were having conflict even among themselves.
Yeah, so there's conflict among, well, the only guy that was really against the British was the one who watches. Like, he was the one that did not like the English at all. And so, again, like I said, one of the guys on his council was already, like, siding with them. And then what really kind of shifted the power was there's another tribe. It was... he got an envoy from another native that said that Weepa Miok, which was another tribe, had actually swore fealty to England, like swore their life to Queen Elizabeth and to England. And that really kind of shifted the power, because now, the one who watches is the only guy that doesn't like the British. He's got a guy on his own council saying, oh, I support the British. Then you've got like these other guys that are supporting it as well. And it seems to be going kind of well now for the British. I did forget to mention, because I was kind of going a little fast here. Remember I was telling you like the supplies were running thin?
Yeah.
Before Lane went on his expedition, they were promised from Grenville, remember our boy Grenville, that he was going to bring supplies by Easter. By the time Lane got back, those supplies did not arrive. And Lane got back after Easter. Okay? So you kind of get an idea of what's going on right now. You know what I mean? So they didn't get their supplies, and they were like worried they're going to starve. But then Lane finds out that one of these tribes has swore fealty to England, and then one of, the one who watches, one of his own guys is like, I support the British. So now everything's kind of tipped, and he's kind of forced the one who watches his hand to where they then start building fishing weirs, and they start helping them sow crops and start basically becoming a colony. And this did not go long. Like, this did not last long, because on April 20th, that elder that supported them, he died. So,
just to make sure I'm tracking, tensions were there with the natives, but then the one who watches had some kind of rebellious elders that were like, no, we support the English. But now, kind of the key figure that was supporting the English dies. And so, where does that leave things now, Will?
So this kind of like leaves things to where the balance is being tipped. So that elder dies, and this kind of deprives the colony of its last advocate, the last guy that stood for him, right? The last one. And that kind of leads, that kind of pushes, the one who watches a little bit, okay? And remember I told you to remember Wanchese, our guy from before, who kind of went with the British, right?
He's the one that actually even sailed.
He sailed
over
across,
there too.
and he spent time with the British. And he came to, the one who watches and said, "Listen, I spent time with these guys. They're assholes. They're a threat. You need to take them out." And so now you've got the one chief elder advocating for him is gone. The guy who was with the British is now saying they suck, kill them, they're a threat. And this leads the one who watches to take the whole entire CROATOAN tribe and leave Roanoke. And while they're leaving, they refuse to sell the crops they had harvested to the people of this new colony, of Lane's colony, as well. They also destroyed those fishing weirs. So they basically have left the British with nothing, and they left and they dipped. And this just kind of left the English to their own devices, and they really had no way to sustain the colony at this point. And Lane had ordered his men to break into small groups to kind of begin foraging and trying to fish and find ways to get food. Now of course, Minatoan, the guy who kind of was buddies with them, that told him about the land and the ocean and all that. Okay, his son, he died at some point, or either left with the CROATOANs. I can't remember. His son, though, stayed with them. Okay, his name was Sketco. Okay, he stayed with the British, and actually, he had informed Lane that the one who watches was actually planning a war. So this kind of also now leads into a war with the natives and the English, and that they were organizing a council on June 10th. Okay, and now the reason why he knew this information was because the one who watches was actually kind of hoping that by Sketco being captured by the British, that maybe he wouldn't want to side with the British, that he'd be an advocate or an activist that did not like the British. He was dead wrong. He wanted to honor what his father did and wanted to stay friends with the British. So this led, let's see.
I guess like father, like son, huh? In a sense.
So remember the copper they found? So they actually did find some minerals and resources. So they were able to trade that copper with the CROATOANs. The CROATOANs gained the copper through trading with the colonists, and this actually was able to lead the one who watches to offer substantial inducements to other tribes, hoping to side with him in a final offensive against the English. So remember how he's basically taking the copper he got from the British, and all the resources, some of the resources he got from the British through trading, and is mounting his own army with other tribes to wipe the British out. And the plan was to ambush Lane and other key leaders as they slept at the colony. So they're going to come in kind of slit their throats.
So war is coming.
Yeah, it's coming, and I mean they're ready. So, so then based off this information, so remember Sketco gave this information to Lane, and so because of this, he sent disinformation to the CROATOAN indicating that an English fleet had arrived. Okay, so the one who watches this whole plan, sneak in there, kill the main leaders, hope they'd leave. Lane found out this information thanks to the guy they captured. Okay, his son was able to take that information and give it to Lane. So Lane knew ahead of time what was coming. So he sent the wrong information, telling them that a fleet had arrived, and this forced the one who watches his hand to act early. And so because of this, he gathered as many allies as he could and met on the 31st of May instead of June 10th, like he thought. And he met, okay, bear with me, this is a long one, Dazamangupanki.
This Dazamangupi, what did he do? Who is he?
Well, this is where they're meeting. This is where they're meeting. This is the place where they're meeting. And so because of that evening, because he had all this information.
Are they meeting to prepare for war?
So they were originally going to meet on June 10th. Like, the one who watches gathered people was going to meet on June 10th. However, Lane had basically already gotten this information from the one Indian that he was friends with, was able to send the one who watches false information saying that they had gotten a battalion of soldiers, reinforcements sent. So because of that, he freaked out and decided to attack earlier than planned. And because of this, Lane was able to figure this out, and he attacked the warriors posted at Roanoke, hoping to prevent them from alerting the mainland to the following morning. So that evening, he did that. So then on June 1st, okay, after this whole meeting, Lane, his top officers, and 25 men visited the place of the meeting under the pretense of discussing a CROATOAN attempt to free Skiko. Okay, so remember Skiko's still sticking with them, right? So they kind of like pulled him into this whole battle plan, and once they were admitted into the council, okay, Lane gave the signal, and they all launched into attack mode, and they shot the one who watches, okay, but then he fled into the woods, and Lane and his men followed him because remember that he's the ringleader of this whole thing. The one who watches has been causing all these problems for so long. You know what they do to him?
What happens?
They track him down, they kill him, they cut his head off, they stick it on a pike outside the fort.
Wow, kind of like a warning symbol.
Like a warning symbol. Like don't mess with the British, dog. Like we'll mess you up.
Wow. What?
Yeah.
What a turn of things. So, I guess with the one who watches, with his death, him being the main person against the English, what happens following this battle where he dies?
So, by the way, I put it in here because, like I said, I'm going off my notes, kind of skimming through them. I forgot to mention that in January 1586, Raleigh was knighted the governor of this new land, and he named the place Virginia. Obviously, like I just said earlier, after the Virgin Queen. So Raleigh's actually governor right now. Lane was the governor of the territory, and then I'm pretty sure once it became an actual colony area, Raleigh became leader. So in June, so that same month after Lane did all this, remember they're still starving. They're starving. Greenville's not showed up. Raleigh has not showed up. Nobody's showing up to save them. But our boy, Sir Francis Drake, shows up, okay? And he's come back from England after some successful campaigns in Santiago, Domingo, Cartago, and St. Augustine. So remember how there's like the whole thing, like they didn't like the Spanish for a while. So he was doing these like missions for them, happened to be strolling by the neighborhood, said, hey, I'll help you out. So then in June, so during these raids, he had acquired refugees, slaves, and hardware with the intent of delivering them to Raleigh's colony. Okay, upon learning of the colony's misfortune, so Drake hears about all this that had happened, the whole war, everything, and he agreed to leave behind 4 months of supplies in one of his ships, the Francis. Okay, but unfortunately a hurricane hit the Outer Banks that year, and it swept the Francis out to sea. So the colonists are hoping that they finally got relief, and it's destroyed by a hurricane.
Man, that just sucks. It's like you had all this time where you are expecting Greenville to come back. He doesn't. You get this lucky break where Sir Francis Drake happens to come to your colony to bring you supplies, and then that gets destroyed with a hurricane. Like, my goodness, what happens for the English after that?
So basically after this whole point, and this is just to kind of sum it up, because the whole point I wanted to hit about was the whole fort thing. So they have this fort, and after this, Lane had persuaded his men then to evacuate the colony. And so Drake agreed, and Manteo, an associate, joined them. As well, 3 of Lane's colonists were left behind and never heard from again. So Lane left behind 3 colonists. They were never heard from again. We don't know where they went. So this is another big mystery of where they went. And then because
so that's kind of like the mystery before the mystery.
Right. And so, of course, that's a wasp. Anyways, that's just what happens when you film in a barn. Anyways, so as well, Drake had all them supplies and stuff. He left them on the island too. And so really all that left was the colonists. The slaves didn't leave. None of these other people left. So we don't really know what happened to the other people on Drake's ship. You good, bud? Okay. Anyways, so we don't know what happened to them. So Drake's fleet, along with Lane's colonists, they finally reached England by July of 1586. On arrival, the colonists introduced tobacco, maize, and potatoes to England. So now that they got potatoes, they got all this fun, cool stuff, even though all of it was lost. But then, of course, that same year of August, Raleigh's relief ship finally arrived. And guess what? They find the place abandoned. They dip out, and 2 weeks later, guess who also shows up? So Raleigh shows up with his supply ship. They figure out the place is abandoned. They leave. And then 2 weeks later, guess what finally shows up in August?
Is it Greenville supply?
It's Greenville supply.
Greenville finally comes. There we go.
Finally comes. He finally shows up after promising to come Easter. It's now freaking August, and this guy finally shows up. And they search high and low. Can't really find anything. He takes his 400 men, and they beat up some natives. All right, CIA torture style. All right. They found out, oh shit, they just left. And man, do we look, I have my notes here. It says, they found out, oh shit, they went back to England. And man, do we look like dicks. Okay, Raleigh or Greenville and his men show up. They beat the crap out of some natives, trying to figure out, oh, you killed our guys, right? And then they're like, dude, they're not dead. They just went with Sir Francis Drake back to England. And he's like, oh, I messed up.
Pretty embarrassing for Mr. Greenville.
Yeah. So
how
yeah.
I guess this is starting to wrap up, but how does this kind of start to lead to the formation of the Roanoke colony?
So before Greenville left, he actually like left behind 15 men with enough food and supplies for 2 years. Just in case.
Greenville did?
Yeah, Greenville did.
Okay, 15 men.
So all the colonists have left the colony after this whole stuff with the one who watches, and now Greenville's back, and he drops off 15 guys. These 15 guys actually disappeared too.
Wait.
Yeah, they disappeared too.
15 men.
15 men disappeared.
Disappeared.
But it gets better.
And this is before Roanoke.
This is before Roanoke.
Wow.
So these 15 guys, okay, they were left there with enough food, enough supplies, and they kind of stayed in the fort. So then I wrote here, now imagine you have a peaceful day with your 5 buddies, okay? You get some oysters for a good roast. When natives come out with flaming arrows, okay? Flaming arrows. Flaming arrows. Not just regular arrows. Arrows on fire.
That would put a damper on my day.
All right? Now you think, okay, getting shank's bad. But imagine you watch your buddy get shanked with a wood sword. What?
Not a fun day.
What is this, Minecraft? Like, just started off, like, got your wood sword. Anyways, now you and the homeboys get in a boat, go pick up the other guys, okay? Now you have an unlucky group of 13 and you just disappear. I forgot to mention, another one of the guys did die. So, like, we think 2 of them got killed. One was killed by a wood sword. The other one we don't know. But then 13 of the guys got in the boat, went to the mainland, never heard from them again. Yeah, like no sign, okay? Almost, it's like, number 13 is unlucky, right? It's like a bad omen.
It's like, there's disappearances happening before even Roanoke. And granted, 15 men disappearing is not as shocking as a whole colony disappearing, which we'll get to in a second. But, wow, my goodness, it just seems like before the English-American settlements really got going, there was just disaster following them at every foot.
Yeah, I mean, it really did kind of suck for them. And, all of this bad stuff, okay, it really didn't deter Raleigh, okay? He said, you know what, we're going to make another attempt.
He was going to get this colony set.
We're going to try again with Haculet, Harriet, and White. The only guy you really need to remember from those 3 names is White, okay? However, because Roanoke Island would no longer be safe for the English settlers following the hostilities with Lane and the CROATOANs, as well, the death of the one who watches, Haculet recommended Chesapeake Bay for the new site, partly because he believed the Pacific coast lay just beyond the explored areas of the Virginia Territory. So then on January 7th, 1587, Raleigh approved a corporate charter to found the city of Raleigh with White as governor. Okay, and 12 assistants. So they had 115 people this time go to the colony. Okay, and
this is Roanoke.
Right.
Okay, commissioned by Sir Walter Raleigh. John White, established as governor. 115 colonists.
Right, and one of those colonists, and this is kind of important for future, was White's pregnant daughter, Eleanor, and her husband Ananias Dare. And the colonists were largely, they were middle-class Londoners. They were kind of probably seeking to become landed gentries. Manteo and Towie, you remember those 2 guys? The Manteo and his associate that fled, Sir Francis Drake.
Mm-hmm.
They had left the Lane colony with Drake's fleet, but were also brought along. And they included women and children, but there was no really organized military force. So remember, the first time it was like all these military guys. Now it's just women and children and men, but there's no really organized military group going with them. It consisted of 3 ships, the flagship Lion, okay, that was captained by White, along with a flyboat and a full-rigged pinnace. Remember that one we talked about? And the fleet departed on May 8th. So May 8th, they decided to start heading to Roanoke. Okay. Did I write down what year this was? I think this was 1587.
That's what I was.
Yeah, this
that's
was 1587.
Because that's really when Roanoke.
No, it was 1586. No, it was 1587. My bad. Yeah, 1587 is when this all happened.
Right. Okay.
Okay. 1587 is when it all happened. So then they got there. They arrived on the flyboat on July 25th, and all the colonists disembarked. Okay. Shortly thereafter, colonist George Howe was killed by a native while searching alone for crabs in the Sound. Okay. White dispatched a group of guys, the Staffords, to reestablish relations with the Croatans with the help of Manteo. Okay. Remember Manteo, the first guy with Wanchese? He's here again, and he's going with them to establish relations with the Croatans. And the Croatans described how a coalition of mainland tribes led by Wanchese had attacked Greenville's detachment. Okay, so you remember Greenville's detachment of the 15 guys left behind?
Yep.
They got attacked and killed by Wanchese. That's who attacked them, was
I
Wanchese.
see. Okay.
Right. So, so then the colonists attempt to negotiate a truce through the Croatans, but receive no response. Okay, so they're on Roanoke Island. They're trying to make peace with them because the one guy died. They thought it was too crazy there, so they went back to the Roanoke Island where the Croatans nearby, and they found out about Wanchese, and they're going to go talk to him, try to smooth things over. And then on August 9th, they got no response. Wanchese did not want to talk. So then on August 9th, White led a preemptive strike on, remember the place where they were making their war council, where the one who watches died? They went back to that village. But however, the enemy was fearing reprisal for the death of Howe, who was the guy that got shanked while trying to search for crabs. They had withdrawn from the village. So they left the village, and then what happened was, because the village was abandoned, Croatans showed up to loot the place. The English mistook the Croatans as Wanchese's men and killed Croatans. The Croatans were the ones who were trying to help them. So they had friendly fire on.
So the one group that really could have helped them get a good start, they killed them, and now there's bad blood.
Yeah, and so after all this, and Manteo, remember Manteo from the beginning with Wanchese, because of all his help, okay, I did write this down because I thought this was really interesting, that on August, so after that, he again began to smooth relations between the colonists and the Croatans. So after they accidentally killed the Croatans, Manteo steps in and helps him again. And because of everything he had done for his service to the colony, Manteo was baptized and named Lord of Roanoke and Dazamon Ponki. That place that we talked about where they met with the council, Manteo was named Lord of Roanoke and that place. So he got baptized.
Interesting. Okay, so things are starting to become nice again between Roanoke Colony and this new group, the CROATOANs. So okay, good.
Yep,
What happens? What happens next?
So this is also the cool bit, because remember that pregnant lady I told you about? On August 18th, 1587, Eleanor Dare, White's daughter, gave birth to a daughter, and she was christened Virginia, in honor of being the first Christian born in Virginia. And by first Christian, I literally mean she was not just the first Christian, she was the first English person born in America. Pretty cool. Now, records do indicate that there was a Marjorie Harvey. She gave birth shortly thereafter, but we don't really know anything about her child, because her child was not cool, because she wasn't the firstborn. Should have pushed out a little sooner there, bud. So anyways, because of this, the fleet was preparing to return to England, and they decided to relocate 50 miles up the Alberni Sound, and that's where the Roanoke colony was forever found. And so, because of all this, they persuaded Governor White to return to England, because things were getting bad again with the natives, and they were kind of running out of supplies. They didn't want to really strain the supplies of the natives, so they were like, White, please go talk to England, figure this out. And so White agreed, and he departed with the fleet on August 27th, 1587. After this, no one knows what happened to Roanoke.
Wow. And that's where the mystery begins.
And so that's where the mystery begins. So I'm gonna wrap up the whole history of Roanoke.
Absolutely, for sure. Just to make sure I'm getting cast of characters correct. So you had Governor John White, his daughter Eleanor, who's married, so she's Eleanor Dare.
Yep.
You have Eleanor Dare's daughter, Virginia Dare.
Yep.
And Governor White has to leave his daughter and granddaughter to go back to London to get supplies.
Yes. And
okay.
so
what happens next?
This is kind of where, really we don't know, because White left for 3 years. White didn't want to leave for 3 years.
Why did White leave for 3 years?
He didn't want to do it for 3 years. Of course,
What happened when he got back to England?
Well, you know what the English like to do, and he could not return sooner due to the Spanish English having a dick measure contest.
What do you mean by that?
England had banned all sailing because they had decided to go to war with the Spanish. Because I think from what I read, the Spanish literally just drove a ship through the channel and like, hey, you can't do that. And they're like, you know what? We got a bigger fleet. We're going to take you on, buddy. So they literally banned all sailing. No one can go to the New World right now because all ships need to be going out for the war.
See, and it just sucks because John White's supposed to be the governor of Roanoke Colony. When he leaves, he's hoping it's going to be a quick trip. You know, go sail the few months, however it takes to get to England, and then come back. Instead, England goes to war with Spain. Now they're calling upon John White's ship to be used in it. And so instead of being gone for a few months, he's gone for 3 years.
Yeah, so, and it gets, it really gets unfortunate for White, okay? So it gets banned, right? However, he did get an opportunity to go with our boy Grenville, okay? Grenville.
Well, before you get into that, I'd just say a lot can happen in 3 years. So, while it is still a mystery that what happened to Roanoke Colony, you do almost wonder, like, yeah, being away for 3 years, there's any number of things that could happen.
Yeah, by the way, before we go more into the whole thing with White, I forgot to mention this and pull this picture up. This picture coming up right now is actually a depiction of the baptism of Virginia. Remember the baby? This is apparently a depiction right on your screen. It's a depiction of what the baptism probably looked like. The baby right there is what Virginia Dare probably looked like. Cute little baby. Don't know really what happened to her. So that picture right there is the baptism of Virginia Dare. I forgot to mention that earlier and bring that up. So, like I told you, things kind of got a little crazy for White because he tried to return. Like he didn't just like for 3 years give up. Okay, he tried to.
You want to get back to your daughter and granddaughter.
Right.
You know, English Spanish War. You're gone 3 years instead of a few months.
Yeah. So, what happened was he got the opportunity to go with Grenville in the March of 1588 to the Caribbean. Grenville was going down the Caribbean to fight the Spanish there. And then while he was down there, they were planning to make a pit stop on the way back. So Grenville was going to go down there to the Caribbean, do a little raiding, come back, hit Roanoke to kind of see what happened. Okay, and this was like 1588. So this was a year after he left. So like a year later, not even really a year later, because he departed on August 27th, and this was March. So he had like 6 months almost, but because of this, the winds and then also the boat was needed back in England for defense. He had to leave White with 2 small ships, and those 2 smaller ships got robbed by French pirates and forced it back to England. So White gets down the Caribbean, so close, wins everything. Oh no, I got to go back to England. But then Grenville's like, hey, don't worry, buddy. I got 2 small ships. The 2 small ships are trying. They get robbed by French pirates, and then they got to go back to England. So
It is just one series of unfortunate events after the other, and again, none of that's to say what happened to Roanoke, but man, you almost kind of feel like something bad was going to happen with Governor White being gone for those 3 years. So
yeah, and so the good news is that in 1589 the war was finally ended. However, the ban was not lifted on boats yet because our good old virgin Queen Elizabeth I wanted to amass the biggest armada she could and attack Spain directly. And because of this, it pushed it back to where White could finally return in 1590. He got there, he joined a private expedition, that 2 ships...
And we are back.
Yeah, so...
Battery died, but it's okay.
Hey,
we get to...
You know what these people are saying? They literally, all for them... It's like that. They don't even realize that the camera died. Anyways, back to what I was reading before I got caught.
We should put in a fake ad where it's like on a break from the ads, like Spotify.
To Spotify Premium.
Anyway, so
yeah. Anyways,
you were talking about.
Anyways, sorry, my microphone was off.
Oh.
Just for the first 5 minutes there on this new recording. Anyways, yeah. So battery died. Want to break from the ads? Yeah, yada yada. Anyways, continue, Steve.
Yeah. So just kind of to recap. So. Governor John White leaves the Roanoke colony to gather supplies. He plans to only be gone for a few months, enough time to sail to England and then come back. war breaks out with the Spanish, so he ends up being stuck in England, not for a few months, but for 3 years.
Yeah, it was like 3 years.
3
trying
years.
to go and then not being
Yeah,
able to.
his daughter,
I know.
Eleanor, his granddaughter, they're
Yeah.
just left in Roanoke. So a lot could happen. So
yeah.
he comes back.
To make things even more sad. Okay, he finally gets to Roanoke after all these years, and the day he gets there happens to be on Virginia's birthday. His granddaughter's birthday, when she'd be turning 3 years old, is the day he finally returns. So that kind of makes it a little bit more sad.
And I guess he thinks he is about to have a really good
Yeah, we're going to have
reunion.
a party, like 3-year-old birthday party, right? She's going to have like a Barbie cake. I don't know.
What happens, Will?
So he gets there, and when they got there, no one was found. There was literally no one. However, carved at the entrance of the colony was the word CROATOAN, okay, which was the name of that tribe, remember from before? They kind of walked through, looked, all the homes were looted or destroyed. They had that boat, and the boat was gone. I put in there the joke from, what's his name? The guy that's like, my boat's been impounded. Their boat got impounded.
Oh, I remember seeing that.
I'm Donnie Baker, and my boat's been impounded. Their boat got impounded.
So Roanoke had that problem, huh?
I'm white, and my boat's been impounded. And now the state's got Virginia's got or the Queen of England's got to reimburse me for all that lumber.
Man, so
yeah, the boat's gone.
tragic scene, yeah, tough scene. You come back,
yeah,
village, like you don't know where anybody is. Your daughter's gone, your granddaughter's gone, and the only clue you have as to what maybe happened is this carving on a tree.
Yeah, so I actually have. Okay, so you should be seeing on your screen the picture of Walter White, not Walter White, wrong White. Uh-oh.
Walter White. They cooking some meth in
let him cook, Raleigh.
Okay.
So this picture here, the guy
John
pointing,
White.
yeah, John White is the guy pointing at the tree. Okay, and that was what basically they saw, was that carving in the tree.
Wow. So CROATOAN, okay. CROATOAN was the native tribe, and it was also in Ireland.
Yes. So the next photo I actually have, I'll finish wrapping up here.
That's really the only clue, right? Well.
Yeah. So that was the only kind of clue they had. Basically, anything not nailed to the floor was gone. Okay. And so I keep wanting to call him Walter White. My bad. White, his name's just John White. Anyways, he wanted to actually go and investigate CROATOAN Island. Since they decided to leave that message in case anything happened. So they had always stated before he left that if anything happened to Roanoke, there would be a secret message left behind. CROATOAN was that secret message left behind by what he thought was the colonists. And he wanted to basically go investigate. And but before they could, one of the anchor cables on that ship they had snapped. And this kind of forced them to compromise on winter in the Caribbean and spring searching. So then they went down back to the Caribbean, but this didn't work, and they were actually blown off course and landed near Portugal, then had to return to England on October 24th, 1590. And there was no other attempts to go back. And it just kind of was like, left to mystery.
The colony's gone. They try to look for them, but stormy weather, hurricane. John White returns to England without his family, not knowing what happened to them. And that's it.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. The last picture we have, we got another picture at the end that is going to kind of go into one of the theories that I have. But this map is a map of all of the kind of the Roanoke area. You can kind of see where all these different, like, the villages are, the CROATOANs were, the CROATOANs were, where Roanoke Island is, and where the Roanokes were, the actual colonists of Roanoke were situated. Kind of give you an idea of the whole general area. I mean, this really is a small, I mean, it looks big, like it's a pretty big size, but when you think about it, you know, it's not really too much. I mean, there's probably about a 20-mile difference between like, not even probably 20, it's probably like a 10-mile distance between Roanoke and the Roanoke mainland, and it's all really fairly close together, and so there's no really, I mean, so that kind of gives you the idea of kind of what we're looking at here. And so, of course, we got the 5 theories of what happened. Sorry for boring you guys with all that long history. It kind of really helps. That was the thing, was I was sitting there, and when I was doing my research for this, it was really hard because it's like, you don't want to bore people with boring stuff. People want to be here for the mystery. But the problem with it is, if you want to solve this mystery, you've got to look back at what happened.
I mean, I'm a history major nerd, so I love that history. But yeah, I guess we can go through down the line. Before you list the theories, though, I'm gonna give my guess, just based off the history, and then we can kind of get into some of the other theories. But my guess is, considering the tensions with earlier native tribes, like, you know, with the one who watches, considering everything that happened with Wanchis, was it? Mm-hmm. My guess is that the Roanoke colony probably were abducted and attacked by some native tribe and met their end. That's my guess off the history. But obviously we don't really know. That's why there's theories. That's why this is a mystery. Well, let's talk about the theories.
Well, before we get into theories, I'm going to tell you what I think happened. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Let's hear it.
Yeah. Got to be aliens.
What kind of aliens?
I mean,
are we talking like ET?
I think
are we
like
talking
ET,
like
ET and his people came down, okay, and they were like, you know what,
we gotta. Would probably be good for Roanoke.
Okay,
right?
listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. That was supposed to be a joke because I told Maddie, I said it would be really funny if, like, with a lot of these.
No, that's fair.
Like, with a lot of these theories and stuff, I just had.
I was playing.
Aliens.
I was kind of digging it.
Well, and that's the thing, was we were kind of like, okay, because I had a merchandising idea where it's just like a hat that just says "Gotta be aliens," you know. I thought it'd be kind of.
Is that going to be your theory for every?
That's
going to
be my theory for every mystery,
podcast.
Okay? Aliens, all the time, aliens. No, but one of the theories that I really like, there actually is a theory that it was aliens. Like, I saw this whole like thread talking about aliens just kind of came in and abducted them, and I also kind of was trying to disprove the theory because it's like, you know, if you believe in aliens, you believe that aliens could have abducted Roanoke. That can explain why, you know, aliens don't abduct people and then keep them. You know what I mean?
Well, and it wouldn't even. How does that explain the tree? What was written on the tree, you know?
Yeah, that is true. So, it doesn't explain the tree.
Is it fun to think about?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun.
It could have been aliens. Like, when you don't know what happened, you really could guess anything. So.
Yeah, and so the plan with these theories is I'm going to read off one of the theories. I found this article online, and so this is kind of what they've written, and I'm going to kind of skim through it. But these are the top 5 theories of what could have happened to Roanoke. The first one is that the people of Roanoke simply just left the settlement. This one says this is one of the more probable theories because they could have supposedly left Roanoke Island and started settling in the Chesapeake Bay area, where they wanted to settle in Chesapeake, but they didn't. And so
I like that theory because, you know, if you're Eleanor Dare and your father leaves and you're expecting him to come back within a few months, and instead he's gone for 3 years. You don't know what's happened to him. You don't know where he went. I would think you're like, okay, is he coming back? Maybe not. Let's go elsewhere. So I actually kind of really like this theory, but go ahead, Will.
Yeah. So it says that they, you know, the reason why their houses were all torn apart was because they used it to build boats. Okay, this theory probably is something happened to the boat or something. So they tore apart and they went up the Chesapeake Bay area, and the reason why is because. This is actually really cool because it tells you how many years passed before John Smith settled the Jamestown settlement, and it's about 20 years. And so this goes into the theory that there was evidence that there was a tale that the rule of the natives had admitted to killing the colonists, like that Roanoke moved upriver and the natives slaughtered them, and that they had said they had been on their land and were then annihilated to prevent more English settlers from still on their land. That kind of is the theory that they left Roanoke, went to Chesapeake, got slaughtered by these Indians, and that they admitted it to John Smith. So that's theory 1.
And that would explain why, other than CROATOAN being written into the tree, why there was no other communications given to John White or anybody else for that matter. Because if they're all dead,
I mean,
who can he communicate to? So
well, and then the next 2 theories at least are kind of quick ones. They're quick, short. The second theory is that the whole population of Roanoke was killed by a disease, which that one is pretty much quickly debunked and is caught. And they even quote here that it's an absurd theory. I mean, you know, the English had not really brought over. I mean, they did bring over diseases. Okay, they did bring over like smallpox and stuff like that. But you got to take note that when White came here, there were no bodies, there was no houses, And if they all died of disease, you would see overgrown houses, you would see dead villagers, like skeletons all over the place. Depending on how long it took for the disease to happen, and
That's not what he found though. Like nobody was there. Yeah.
He literally found nothing, and so that's why that theory is kind of thrown out. The second theory, and if I don't go off the whole joke of me believing it was aliens, the third theory kind of makes a lot of sense to me, and that is that the village was destroyed by like a severe storm, like a hurricane. That a hurricane came through, because remember there was that one hurricane that happened.
How would that explain where the bodies are though?
Well, that would be kind of where the hurricane would have washed away the colonists and destroyed the houses, right? But then again, the problem with this theory that they quote here is that the fence was still standing, so they had these pylons that they had built around the village, and that those pylons were still standing, and a storm would have damaged those as well. So that's the issue, is that these pylons were still there. So they built it's like a piece of wood. Like imagine like if we took a log, like one of the pine trees outside, and we cut off the top and then we sharpened the end. It's like that kind of fence. That fence that they put around settlements? That's what that fence kind of looked like.
Interesting. Okay. So, cool. We got the leaving theory, we got the disease theory, and we got the storm theory. I think so far the leaving one's my favorite. I know the storm one is your favorite. What are the next couple last couple of theories?
So the last one, or the last two, is that the people of Roanoke decided to leave Roanoke and live with the natives. So remember we had CROATOAN. Okay, so if you remember, the CROATOANs were very, very peaceful with them, and the theory is that the CROATOANs are the one who carved the name CROATOAN in the wood to show that the villagers have come and lived with them, and it was and this is possible because that the colonists decided to live with the natives. However, there's not been really any decent amount of evidence to prove this theory, but again, there's no evidence really to disprove this theory. So really the only proof that we have that they left and lived with the CROATOANs is based off the word CROATOAN on the wood, and that their homes are gone, everything's gone, there's no bodies, there's nothing. So that theory then goes into like they just said, okay, he's not coming back, let's leave. They left, they got absorbed into the tribe. Because they got absorbed in the tribe, they lived there. And again, the only evidence we have saying that they did is the word CROATOAN being carved by the CROATOANs to tell him where they went, and that the houses are gone and there's no bodies. To disprove this theory, there's hardly any evidence really to disprove it, and there's hardly any evidence to support it. It's just one of those kind of theories that like not a lot of people really know, what really happened.
Wow, yeah, and it's just, I don't know, there's all kinds of crazy theories out there, but I think really I'm going to shift over a little bit. We'll come back to the theories, but I know for Governor John White, he kind of spent his final days of life in Ireland, from the research I found, and people would ask him about it, and he says, he's like, I hope they're alive, but they're in God's hands. And he kind of lived out, I think he died in 1607 in Ireland, so I think that's about 17 years of just him not knowing what happened to his daughter or granddaughter. That's kind of crazy.
That's sad to think. I mean, you kind of think about it, and I mean, we'll wrap
it is
up
a tragedy. There's the mystery of it, but yeah, I mean, I think it just really is a sad thing that happened to this first colony.
Yeah. So the last theory was that they were kind of going off of the theory with the people of Roanoke simply left the settlement, where I told you they kind of like left, and then they got killed by these natives. This theory goes into that they were actually killed by natives at Roanoke. And this is, apparently according to them, this is one of the most probable of all theories. And there's one big important fact that supports this theory. As one may not know, the Englishmen had before tried to start the colony at Roanoke before. So you remember they tried to start it before. And it was and then you remember the group of 15 guys that were there. And about a year had actually passed since they first started that colony. Remember how I told you, like the timeline for Roanoke is such a quick timeline. It really all happened back to back to back to back. So like the whole war with, the one who watches was so soon. And so this theory goes into that, like, because it was all so quick, it was in the minds of these natives. Like this was fresh in their minds of what had happened. And then what these explorers found was one dead body. Okay, so when they came to explore the place, they found that one dead body that was stabbed. Then it was verified that it was the work of the natives. Okay, now based on these past events that we know, natives were capable of such atrocities and also capable of hiding the bodies. Okay, This we know. They're capable of hiding bodies. They're capable of slaughtering people. They're good at it. And they're like the prehistoric. Well, I wouldn't say prehistoric because the pre-American Clintons. Okay, good at hiding bodies and good at killing people.
I like that theory too, because it explains to me again. I feel like the theory that they all were killed by natives makes the most sense, because if I am Eleanor Dare, I am letting my father know somehow that we're alive, we're okay, and I don't think writing CROATOAN on a tree would be enough, and that's why to me that's my favorite theory. But I know we're running out of time on this podcast. I do want to mention one last thing, although it sounded like you said something, so I'll let you say your thing.
I got a couple more things.
All right, say a couple more things, and then I'll say my last thing, and then we'll wrap this up.
Before I even go any further, I forgot to put this picture up earlier when I talked about aliens. I looked up pilgrims and aliens, and I found this like old-timey drawing where you've got like the pilgrims, and they're like pointing to like a spaceship, a flying saucer in the sky.
That's hilarious.
Anyways, so I was going to finish wrapping up a little bit about a little bit more about this theory. Is that, like I just said, they're pretty good at killing people, they're pretty good at hiding bodies, okay? And we know the buildings were torn down. And you got to think about it. White was gone for 3 years. If you had a large group of tribal Indians that came through and killed all of them, they would have plenty of time to hide the bodies, to kill all of them, and to tear down the buildings. And again, the problem with this theory, though, there's still not been enough evidence to verify it. What the problem with a lot of these theories is there's not a lot of evidence to point directly to one theory. The reason why they're being killed by the natives is such a big theory is because the whole problem with it before in the past. You think about the hurricane. We've known there was a hurricane before, but why is the fence still there? And the word CROATOAN, it's such a big mystery. I don't think we're really going to know the answer.
Well, and that's why this is why this is on our podcast, because if we knew the answer, we wouldn't be talking about Roanoke. But yeah, here we are. 430 years plus after the fact, and yeah, we still don't know. I mean, at this point, unless DNA testing can prove otherwise, that's the tale of Roanoke. I'm gonna end the podcast with this one last thought, because I think this is at least interesting. So I know that early in the 20th century, you kind of had this guy walking through the woods, and he found this stone, which has now been called the Dare Stone, and it had a message apparently written by Elizabeth Adair.
I actually looked a little bit into this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people support the theory that, okay, one of the Dare Stones could be true, but the other ones they think could be copies. And I think that's like the thing is, I really don't think there's any way where we can really credit the Dare Stones. Again,
we can't know for sure.
We can't know for sure. As well with these theories, there's no telling what happened to these natives, and that's why I think with this file, I think this case remains unsolved.
For sure.
I really think at the end of hearing the story, hearing the theories, all of this, I think we can say for sure that Roanoke remains unsolved.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll just say this about the Dare Stone. There was 44 Dare Stones found. 43 of them are hoaxes for sure. The guy that brought them forward, it told a very interesting story, but it turned out that guy was a stone cutter who could professionally make these things, and they were very different from the first one. The only reason I bring up the first Dare Stone that was found is the first Dare Stone was very different in quality. There was not a reward offered for the first Dare Stone. The guy that brought the first Dare Stone said, "Hey, I found this." Once that first one was found, there was a monetary reward given for the other Dare Stones, meaning the guy who made the fake Dare Stones had incentive to make it. But that first one, they actually did like mineral testing on it, and it looked like it had been aged. And so they're saying that first Dare Stone might have gone back to the Roanoke time. But yeah, I'd encourage you to look that up more. We're not going to talk too extensively about that, but like Will said, I think this case is still very much open. It's really tough to say for sure anything else, but yeah, How's that for a first episode, Will?
I think that's pretty good. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Our episodes should not be usually that long. Again, the reason why Roanoke was such a long thing for us to talk about is because...
Well, there's a lot
I mean, like we just said, the case is going to remain unsolved. And I feel like, but to at least try to grasp an idea, a thought, what could have happened, you kind of got to look back at these wars, with the one who watches and all this. And, even, the history might not have been needed, but it kind of gave a little insight, even if this case remains unsolved. It's still going to probably be one of America's biggest mysteries. Who knows? Maybe soon we could finally figure out what happened to Roanoke, but I think it's safe to say for right now that that's it. I mean, we're not going to know. We're never going to find out.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you for joining us for this very first episode of Beyond the Campfire.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We will see you on the next one.
Yeah, and next episode is Steven's episode. So we'll see what he can cook up.
Thank y'all. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening to this.
Cheers.